Hello and welcome to our show. I'm Lana Kay, and we have a very informative show planned for our senior viewers. Here to help us navigate important aging life decisions is Bill Schult of Trinity Aging Life Advisors. Welcome to our show, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're so glad to have you with us because, Bill, as we know, as we age, life changes for us. And it's very important that we have planned for these changes. And I know you'll agree.
Absolutely.
So, Bill, in general, to start us off, tell us about Trinity.
Absolutely. So Trinity is an organization that me and my partner started in early 2015. We're a unique organization that takes two broad skill sets, healthcare and financial expertise, and puts them under one roof and is an independent objective advisor for seniors and their families. You know, I think as we all know, as we've all lived our own personal experiences, you know, decisions are never simple when it comes to, you know, senior care and health care and end-of-life decisions. You know, and sometimes it's not purely a medical decision, sometimes it's not purely a financial decision, it's a combination of both.
True.
So we formed Trinity as an organization that, like I said, kind of blends two unique skill sets together to be there to advise individuals and their families.
It's a wonderful thing to have somebody to go to with these important decisions. So, Bill, you have like 5 important tips that we want to go over today, and he's emailed me these, thank God. And so, Bill, to start us off with, we want to, in aging, staying connected to others.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you think about the way that our country and our society has changed, I think, you know, 3 generations ago, or let's put it this way, maybe 80 years ago, you'd have 3 generations under one roof. 40 years ago, you might not have 3 generations under one roof, but you'd have them all in the same town. Now we're lucky if people are even in the same city or in the same state. And I think a very, very important thing, perhaps the most important tip that I'll start with, is staying connected to others. You know, people that live in a community live 2.3 years longer than those who are isolated at home. And I'm not referring specifically to senior living communities, while those can be great options. I'm just referring to people that are connected to neighbors and friends, and in a perfect scenario, family as well. So whether that's, you know, keeping in touch via phone or email or even social media nowadays, writing letters, you know, participating at senior centers, volunteering, really anything you can do to stay connected to others is going to do 2 things for you. First of all, it's going to, you know, keep your mind sharp, keep you fresh, keep you physically active. But second of all, it's also going to give you a good support system you can rely on. So many times the issues that people struggle with, they're not complicated healthcare needs or anything like that. It might be as simple as, you know, getting down the stairs every single day to get the mail is an ordeal. And if you get behind on that, it can cause any number of financial issues. Or, you know, occasionally it'll be, you know, that person that has very few chronic conditions or medications, but does need to get to the doctor, you know, 6-10 times a year. And, you know, if you have a good group you can rely on of people that are close by or able to step up for you, it can make a tremendous difference.
That is so good. That is such good advice. It really is, Bill. Because we did, show before this, we did the 5 blue zones. And they're regions throughout, geographically, they're not close together, but they all share. There are 5 separate regions that share characteristics for longevity. And you know, so many times, Bill, in the past we said, well, people that are married live longer, and they proved that that necessarily isn't true.
Right.
But people that are connected live longer. So it's not necessarily that, you know, that your spouse isn't here anymore, so you're pretty doomed.
Absolutely.
It is, you know, if you stay connected, you're just going to be better off emotionally, physically, everything. So I think that was a great tip, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. You know, one thing that I've learned from being in this line of work is, you know, some people don't have family and or family they can rely on, and that's okay. But I've seen, you know, communities, neighborhoods, whatever you want to call it, come together to take care of our seniors, those who can't take care of themselves, and it's really a great thing. We live in a very divisive world nowadays. People are, you know, constantly bickering, but it's really cool to see, you know, neighbors and friends step up and help each other.
Help. That is so true, and that's happened in my neighborhood, and I know because we love him,
Right.
and he's going to be 90 now, and so a couple of guys cut the grass. They just are there, and he knows we're there. So, you know, what a relief and what a good tip.
Exactly.
Okay, Bill, now talk to us a little bit about, you've saved your money. And now what are you going to do with it?
Right. You know, I
What
think
are your wishes?
I think it's particularly true for the generation of individuals that are older now. You know, some of them have lived through the Great Depression, known for being very, very frugal, and that's a fantastic way to be. You know, I think there's no right answer to what you want to do with the money you've saved up. I mean, for some people, they want to, you know, on their deathbed to write that last check that clears out their account, spend every penny on their own care, which is fantastic. Other people want to leave a legacy, or you know, maybe there's a specific a family home or an automobile or something that is really important to leave to the next generation. You know, all of those are fine, but the important thing is that they require planning. You know, one thing I'll mention is that, you know, especially as more and more people unfortunately suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's, it can be very important if you have somebody in your life that you trust to, you know, go ahead and get things like powers of attorney, or even getting them as an authorized user on your bank account, you know, whatever it is. Sometimes it's very important to do that before dementia or other mental incapacity sets in. You know, unfortunately, you can have the best power of attorney document written up by an amazing lawyer in the world, but occasionally, whether it's a bank or Social Security, they have their own forms and their own wording. If those haven't been completed in time, it can be very complicated for your loved ones to access the finances that you saved up for your own care.
So if they come to you, are you going to walk them through that? We need these documents. You know, not just, you know, maybe you can look over the attorney. Is that what you would do then? You would look over what they have, if they have anything, or you would start them out completely fresh?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in my case, I'm not an attorney. We don't write legal documents or anything like that. But we're happy to take a look. You know, some people might have a power of attorney that was written in the 1980s or 1990s.
Yes, I know that's a lot of my friends. It's been a long time.
And in theory, these documents shouldn't expire. They should work. They should function just fine. But unfortunately, in a very sophisticated financial world with of course cybercrime and elder abuse and what have you, the banks have put in a lot of restrictions that, you know, are there to help people be protected from financial fraud. You know, as well as, let's be honest, to cover their own rear a little bit. But as a result, it can be very good to refresh those documents. And like I said, you know, maybe, you know, let's say, for example, you're not ready to put somebody else onto your bank account, but there's no reason why you couldn't go to your bank and ask them, hey, these are the documents that I have. You know, if and when I'm ready to submit them, would they go through your bank's legal review or something like that?
Great advice.
It's always a good idea just to, like I said, plan, be as proactive as possible. And that's going to allow you to achieve your financial goals both while you're alive and after you've passed.
That's a very good tip. Very good, Bill, because, you know, now do you find that people are resistant about wanting, so many people don't really want to think about the end, and Bill, it's inevitable.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're born and we're all going.
That's right.
The common denominator. But so many people, it's like, that. You know, I don't want to go there yet, but accidents happen just like that. You know, life can change just like that.
Absolutely.
A stroke, a car accident. And I mean, we really need to, you know, run things by, you know, our advisors to make sure we're up to speed before, like you said, it happens, before we start becoming forgetful. This is great advice, Bill. And
the one thing I'll mention on that front is I think the generation of today that are in their 70s and 80s and 90s, you know, are unique in a sense because a lot of their parents did not live into their 70s and 80s and 90s. So we're sort of seeing that, you know, that generation of, like I said, may have grown up in or around the Great Depression or if not World War II, very, very independent and self-sufficient and really never saw that unfortunate, you know, long, you know, mental decline that can happen as someone gets into their, you know, 80s or 90s.
You're right.
You know, so I'm optimistic that, you know, today's 40s and 50s and 60-year-olds, you know, have lived through this a little bit more and won't be as resistant to those discussions related to passing.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think we are, the baby boomers are more open. My mom and dad didn't want to go there at all.
Right.
You know, we really had trouble. I think you're right. I think as time has moved on, people become more realistic and less fearful.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely.
Okay, Bill, moving right along.
The next thing I always like to bring up is that there are always options. You know, one thing about my organization, like I said, is being independent, objective. We don't have relationships with, senior care businesses, whether that's communities or home care companies. We don't have relationships with healthcare providers.
I like that you're not steering any which way. You're for
Right.
the individual.
We don't sell financial products or whether that's annuities or stocks or anything like
Love
that.
it. Love
Insurance. So, I'll say this, it's, every organization you talk to, particularly a for-profit entity, but even a nonprofit, has some sort of service or product that they're pushing. That's
so
just
true.
being realistic. And so, whether it's the home care company that says, oh, you can definitely stay at home, you don't need to move to an assisted living, or whether it's the physician who has a pharmaceutical rep that he works with closely, or whether it's the financial advisor who tends to sell annuity products instead of some equities. There's always something being pushed, and it's not their responsibility to present every single option to you. That's yours as the consumer. And so it's important to remember whether it's therapy versus medication versus surgery, whether it's different types of senior living communities, whether it's different financial choices you can make. There's always options. So it's just very important to try to keep pushing. Make sure whether you can advocate for yourself or someone to advocate for and with you, make sure that all the options are considered and then make the right decision.
That is now that is great, because I like that you're just for your individual that you are helping. What is the best course for you? And there's no outside influence. Right. There's no kickbacks. There's no anything like that.
Right.
Bill, this Trinity is just a terrific access for people that are trying to think ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Go right on, Bill. You're doing great, isn't he? You keep going.
Sure. Well, I mentioned a little bit about choices between different healthcare strategies. I think one that's very, very important is medication. Medication is the #1 cause of why people wind up in the emergency room. Whether it's over medication, under medication, whatever it might be. And the thing about medication, particularly when it comes to chronic conditions, is that it becomes so ingrained in our lives that if something happens, like you mentioned, a stroke or the onset of dementia, just because you've had it in your mind for all these years doesn't mean that somebody else would have it. So it's very, very important to always keep a medication list with you, or maybe on your refrigerator at home on a magnet, whatever it is. Make sure that your physician, and when I say your physician, I should say all of your physicians, make sure that they, have a current list of all of your medications. There's been more and more movement in this country to electronic medical record keeping systems by the healthcare providers. And of course, here in Northern Kentucky, we have one large provider as well. But that being said, it's not a perfect situation where all the providers communicate well together. So make sure that that there is an updated list, on your person or nearby. Another thing that's important to think about is drug interactions. In that same vein, what your endocrinologist prescribes may not be able to be taken with what your cardiologist prescribes. Mm-hmm. Drugs.com is a website that you can type in all your medications and see which ones interact together. Totally free service. My understanding is the federal government oversees it. So it can't hurt to take a few minutes to go online and take a look and see which drugs interact together, which ones don't. And of course, if going online is not a great option for you, this is what pharmacists are for.
That is great advice.
I think there's been a lot of consolidation in the pharmacy industry, and unfortunately there's a lot less pharmacies than there used to be. I mean, the drugstore used to be sort of the central part of every small town, and I think it used to become more manageable for that pharmacist in that small town to already be providing that service for you. But now,
big world now.
Things have changed a lot more medications as well.
Yes.
But they're there to help you as well. That is the role of the pharmacist, besides dispensing drugs, is to help you make sure that they're going to interact well together.
Mm-hmm. You say pill boxes, Bill, help you. You're talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for my mother, it was imperative she had that, or she could have never remembered.
Right.
And so you do advocate for those.
Absolutely. And there's the ones that are just 7 days. There's ones 2 weeks, a month. There's ones that will lay out morning, wake up, morning, afternoon, evening, bedtime. So those are excellent. The other advantage of using those as well is that whether it's home care organizations, some senior livings either, a lot of their licenses don't allow them to they're allowed to hand you the pills if they're already pre-organized. It's a very specific technical
But they are, again, protecting
right. Right. Right.
themselves.
But having it organized, having someone organize it for you, whatever it is, just goes a long way in avoiding confusion, avoiding hospitalization, and in many cases, elongating independence as well.
Mm-hmm. These are just great tips. So when we go to our primary, it would be good to always have our, this is what we're taking.
Absolutely.
Then when we go to special, it would always be good to have that list.
Sure.
And hopefully they may know, but it wouldn't be bad, I guess, to run it by the pharmacist also.
Absolutely.
They may know what's good for their specialty,
Mm-hmm.
but how's that going to interact with a heart specialist?
Absolutely. To me, in the same sense that, you might keep your checkbook and your credit cards and debit cards with you because they're so important to your livelihood and important to your ability to, get what you want to get done and during your day. To the same extent, your medications are the same way. Those are the ones that...
I was surprised when you sent me the email and you said the number one reason for ER, that's emergency room visits, are, medication problems.
Right.
You overdid it, or you
Underdid.
interacted, or
Right.
something happened.
Right.
Well, I was very surprised about that.
Right. And of course, what goes along with that, to clarify, is some of the side effects that can come from taking medications. Everyone sees the pharmaceutical commercials and the long list, big one.
Yes,
Nausea and dizziness leads to falling and
Papillations, you name it.
Right. Right. So it's just an important topic. We should keep our information on our medications as near and dear and close to us as we do our financial information.
Bill, we're going to go to this end of life.
Right. The topic that nobody wants to speak with.
That's true. That nobody wants to believe, but
Right.
But it's going to happen to everybody.
That's right. So end of life care wishes can make a tremendous difference. You and I were speaking briefly, off air about this. Here's what I would say. When the end of your life comes and, you might not have capacity, whether it's because of dementia, whether it's because you're unconscious, whatever it might be, there's really two things you want to be there for you. The first is you want a piece of paper that you wrote down what you wanted. But a piece of paper is not a living, breathing thing, and it's not going to encompass every single situation ever. So what you also want is, in an ideal situation, is a healthcare agent, a healthcare power of attorney, who can help make those decisions for you. Those two things in concert are exactly what you need. To me, the living will without the power of attorney is just it's just not enough because it's too rigid. The power of attorney without the living will, though, is putting a ton of pressure on whoever you select. Yes. Especially if, let's say, for example, you have multiple children and you made one of them your healthcare power of attorney.
Yes.
A situation where, you've told one child something, but 10 years earlier another to the other child, the conflicts that could cause and the long-standing guilt and everything could be very, very difficult.
Yes.
So to me, it's very important, to have what you want written down and also have that person who's there and their job is to let your providers know what you want.
Bill, this has been such a great show. Isn't he just a down-to-earth, intelligent, kind? You're just a great advocate for Trinity.
Thank you.
Anything you would like to add, Bill? We're coming to the end of the show. Anything you would like to tell the viewers?
The only thing I'll add is actually on that last point when it comes to the end-of-life wishes. So about 8 years ago, there was a project started by a journalist who struggled with end-of-life care for one of their parents called the Conversations Project. It was profiled on 2020 by Dan Sawyer about 5 years ago. But the Conversation Project is a free website that gives a guide to how to have these conversations with your family, as well as perhaps people struggling to address this, how to get it started for themselves. And it's just worth checking out the Conversation Project to make sure you can address these topics with your loved ones.
You've been listening to Bill Schult, Trinity Aging Life Advisors. Bill's contact information will follow. And I hope that you have found this show helpful as we navigate through this senior journey. Trust me, it can be a truly rewarding time, but it's important to have everything in order. You need guidance, you give Bill a call at Trinity. Remember, life is what you make it, and we're all free to really enjoy our ride. So as we zoom along, remember, as I always say, be happy and keep smiling, and I'll see you soon.